All right, perfect. All right, welcome, Blair.
Hey.
Would you introduce yourself, your name, what you do for your job, and what you do for adventure?
Ooh, that's a good question. Okay, I'm Blair Sharp. I am I kind of part-time freelance right now. I also have a day job, so I'm kind of mixing both. I work at the Mayo Clinic. I'm in Rochester, Minnesota, so I work in psychology there. And then I also do freelance writing on the side. Not even on the side. Why do I say that anymore? Like, you know what I mean? I don't do
You
it on
do
the side.
both.
It's almost like my my old day job is now become my side gig is kind of how I feel, which is a good place to be. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So,
that's amazing.
um, and for adventure, oh my gosh, I'm like the least adventurous person, but I do have a 7-year-old son, so that really does help me like be adventurous and like it's just kind of fun. Like the hack that parents don't really talk about is that like you get to like play with all the cool toys and like
Yeah.
do all the cool things and like go hiking and stuff like that. Maybe I normally wouldn't do,
Hmm.
but since he wants to go be active and do stuff, then I get to do that. So
I
it's
love
kind of
that.
yeah,
That's adventure.
yeah,
Teaching
yeah.
him how to
Every
try
day is
new
an adventure in
foods.
this house.
Yeah, yeah. I did see a video on TikTok a while back that was like, I'm gonna pretend that my toddler is a tourist and we're just gonna do like all the tourist things where we live because they've never been here before.
Yeah, yeah. You're gonna show him around.
Such a good perspective. I never would have thought of it that way. And now I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna treat myself like I just moved here. Why am I not acting like a tourist? There's like all these museums here. Never been to them. Like, let's
Yeah.
go.
Right. Why not?
Yeah. Heck yeah. Well, welcome to the show.
Yeah.
Um, I would love to start with like how you went from that full-time job you just talked about
Mhm.
into like your freelance writing and
Yeah.
being able to do this. Now it's like eclipsing your other job. What? How did that
Yeah, I
go?
don't know. It's just a lot of my success, I guess you could say, is just from like knowing people, like knowing
Mhm.
the right people. I think like referrals, this is not like a good starting point for my journey, but like, I just think like referrals and networking and I wish there were better ways to say networking, but like just like knowing people has been
Yeah.
really helpful to like move my career, I guess, along. But yeah, so I actually just celebrated 10 years at my day job on Sunday. So PTO finally went up and like I get a cool little gift that I can't decide on. But yeah, so I started writing. It's kind of I always try to figure out like the best way to tell this story because there's a lot of parts for me. It's not just like I decided to write and then I, started a
Yeah,
business,
it's
but like
never a
that's
straight line.
it's never like that for anyone, right? So I I don't want to go all the way back, but I was very creative as a child, right?
Hmm.
And so I was very into all like things. I was into art and things like that. And then when I got into college, I was definitely more into like partying than going to college. Like I was just like, I went for psychology and I just kind of was like there to get the degree because that's what you're supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
And then really didn't do any writing or reading or anything that, self development wise. I was doing a lot of socializing, which is also good for you.
Hmm.
And then when I was, let's see, well, I quit drinking when I was 32 in 2018. So that was a
Wow.
big part. Yeah, that was a big part of like my story. And so I did a lot of like it's so corny to say like finding yourself, but like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like I figured out like
Yeah.
what I like to do, what I didn't like to do, which is
Hmm.
almost more important.
Yep.
And one of those things became writing, right? So I started writing for a local parenting blog and just a lot of personal essays and things like that. And then we got into different, creating resources and things for the community. So I just really got into it there. And that was just a volunteer thing. So it wasn't
Yeah.
paid. I wasn't doing it for money, which made it kind of took the pressure off, which
Mm.
I say like the way I got into it was just like kind of easy. It felt easy and like no pressure. There wasn't there weren't high expectations, for me to like I didn't quit my job and then try to like make this work, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm very risk averse, so like I would never do that. I still have that job, I think. But yeah, so then I started posting on Instagram. I made like an alcohol-free Instagram account. And I was doing some like, collaborations, like paid ones with brands, and like just learning like how to make things on Canva, and just writing my story there. And I realized like how much just writing your story or talking to people about things can just like totally change people's lives. And
Yeah.
so that happened more than once, where I know that like, in that my Instagram time,
We've all had it. I've
yeah,
had it
right,
too.
right.
Yeah.
There was more than one person that I got a DM from that said like, "Hey, like I want to quit drinking, like I don't know what to do," and I
Mhm.
sort of give them advice and tell them kind of like, listen to this podcast or do this or that, and kind of coach them through it. And then, it'd be like a year later and they'd like DM me again. They'd say, "Yeah, I haven't drank since like we talked. Like you
That's
were the first
great.
person to talk." Yeah. So like just like getting out there and just like words and writing, and I just realized like how big of a deal that can make in people's lives, right? So
Mhm.
that's why right now, my main areas I like to write in are mental health and parenting, things that I've experienced that are, it's always easy to write about like what you've experienced.
Yeah.
Um, and I started making a little bit of money doing that, right? So like I started writing a few mental health blogs for different companies and things like that. So I slowly eased into it.
Mhm.
But then when I started making money, I was like, oh, I can make money from this. I didn't even know really,
Yeah.
because we all think, oh, got to go to the office every day. It's a 9 to 5. Like that's just, you stay somewhere for 30 years and then you
Yeah.
retire. Like that's what we're told, right?
Were you raised by
Um,
parents who
yes.
had that steady
Yes.
job?
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
So
so
it
interesting.
feel pressure to do that, but like that's just like what you do, right? You just think
Yes.
that's what you do.
That's how life
Um,
works.
yeah, and I have a good job, at the Mayo Clinic. It's a big name and it's steady. I'm not like there's no, I'm not gonna, unless I do something really bad, and I'm probably never gonna get like let go from it.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think COVID also, like being home and realizing how nice it was to be home for a little bit and do
Mhm.
stuff on like remote work, which we really can't do because I see patients. But
Mhm.
I got a feel for that, and that also added to me thinking like, okay, if I could write from home, like that was kind of like my ticket, right? Like writing
Yeah.
was kind of my ticket to have that like flexibility and freedom, I guess,
Mhm.
with my time and energy and what I'm doing.
Yeah. Do you feel like freedom has become a
I
cliche?
know. You
Yeah,
felt
I can
that in
hear it
my
in your it's
voice,
so funny.
right?
I hear you talk
Freedom.
about
I talked
working
about
from
that the
home.
other day on LinkedIn too. I was like, oh, this freedom thing. Um, because everybody's is different. It's not freedom.
Yeah.
Like I'm still waking up in the middle of the night thinking about I need another client. You know what I mean? Or like,
Yeah.
so freedom in my time and energy.
Yes.
I think for sure more flexibility. Really,
Yeah. I think
do what you want
freedom,
when you want. Mhm.
holistic freedom, if we're talking about freedom as a package,
Right.
is actually like financial independence and being able to do whatever you want when you want and not having to work. That's what a lot of people see freedom as. But in
Yes.
reality, freedom is actually just like being able to decide how you spend your time and being able to decide what projects you work on and being able to decide like, oh, I'm going to bump my rate up to
Right.
$75 an hour instead of 55, and you get to decide that, not somebody else. Like
Exactly.
those are the freelance freedoms, but every one of those freedoms comes with some kind of downside that is
Exactly.
like, yeah, worrying about clients, worrying about making enough money, worrying
Yeah.
about, am I doing it right? Am I enough? Am I working hard
Yes.
enough? So it's kind of, it's always been a double-edged
Yeah.
sword. And people love, you can accuse me of this, packaging. When I used to sell my course, like I did so much lifestyle stuff on Instagram because that's what attracted people to buy my course.
Sure.
And looking back, I'm like, it was like a little bit sleazy, and that's probably why it didn't work as well as I wanted it to.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like that was real footage from my real life. Like I genuinely did work 17 hours a week. I genuinely
Yeah.
did spend the entire year
Right.
traveling full time and rock climbing. But what you didn't see on my Instagram was that I became paranoid eventually about my safety living on the road, and I
Yeah.
was really, really, really like sickeningly lonely. And like,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
can live a dream life and still have bad side effects. There's
Exactly.
always going to be a downside, and it's whether
Yep.
or not you want to pay that price. That downside is a price. Do you want to pay it?
Right. And there's a downside to every job, right? It's just like,
Yes.
it's almost like find the job that you hate the least. Like, and,
Yes.
you know what I mean? Like, of course I don't, I still work Mondays and Tuesdays. I work 10 hours Monday and 10 hours on Tuesday. And then I have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for writing. And
Mhm.
so, yeah. Um, the thing that I don't like about going to work is like that I have to get up and like put pants on. You know what I mean? Like I have to like wear black pants, like fancy ones, So like
Yeah.
instead of the sweatpants I have on now.
Yeah, I found actually I was like roller skating on a tennis court and someone like left a pair of Gymshark sweatpants there and I went like 3 days in a row and they were there all 3 days and I was like, this is just litter now. I'm just gonna take these home and wash them and bring them to
Yeah.
Goodwill. And then I washed them and I put them on and I was like, these are the best sweatpants ever. Buy a pair of these. So now I have like 3 pairs of these
Oh
Gymshark
my
sweatpants
God.
and I wear them every single day. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
That's a freedom of freedom of comfortable pants. But
Yeah.
I don't even know. Were we on my story?
Yeah, so like I find it really fascinating that you started out with this alcohol-free
Yeah.
account on Instagram that you grew to 18,000 followers, which is like not an easy feat. Like that's
No.
huge.
Hmm.
What made you move on from that?
Yeah, I have ADHD, so
I love
that
that.
pretty much sums it up.
Yeah, you got bored.
Um, there's really not, it's not all about the money, but
Mhm.
there's no like no real upward movement in that space unless you
Mhm.
become like a sober coach or something like that, or like, start make sober courses or sober, a membership. I have a friend who has a membership where people can join like when they want to quit drinking and stuff.
Yeah.
And I just didn't really want to do that. I'm not like a coach person.
Yeah.
I
I think
just
I've
like talking. Yeah, go ahead.
with ADHD too, like I find this with myself. I'm like super obsessed with something for a while. This is my favorite
Yes.
thing about this podcast. The first
Yeah.
season, completely about through hikers. All we did was interview
Yeah.
people who hike the Appalachian Trail, the Pacific Crest Trail, Continental Divide Trail, trails in Russia, trails in
Yeah.
Arizona. That was what I was obsessed with. When I decided I was done with it, I'm done. There's nothing left.
Yes.
I can't
Never again.
pretend. I can't fake it. Exactly. And then the next season, I was like interested in van life because I was getting started like buying a van and moving into a van. So
Yeah.
it's all about van life. Now I'm obsessed with entrepreneurship. So that's what we're
I
doing.
love that.
It's the guidebook to whatever I'm obsessed with. And
Right.
that's the best
Literally.
part.
Yes. And that's how it should be if it's like a passion thing. Like, and that's how it, like, you wouldn't be doing this if you had to still be doing hiking stuff. You know what I mean?
It
Like
would
it
be
would get
over.
old after a while. Yeah. So, I mean, I didn't have a problem. Like I don't care. Like I'll talk about not drinking, like, but it's like every day, like it was just kind of like, okay, I'm like more than a person that doesn't drink. And and I
Yeah.
know it's for other people. And so that was great and stuff too. But yeah, I just kind of like got over talking about it. And it's honestly like nice to not have to like share what I'm eating on my Instagram story every day and like, post on Instagram every day, like visual stuff. Like and writing, right? Like writing is a lot easier. So I can just write about something.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah,
actually I did find LinkedIn though. And that's why
yeah,
I quit Instagram because I can't do two things at once. I can't do two platforms well at
yeah.
once. So I honestly like found LinkedIn. I don't even know if I did Instagram for a couple more weeks, but then I was like, okay, bye, I'm leaving. I'm gonna go to LinkedIn. And then I think I started LinkedIn in 2024, maybe 2022. It hasn't been
Mhm.
2 years, I don't think, since I've been on LinkedIn like actively. But yeah, I don't even know the password to that Instagram account, honestly. Like, I need to go back because I'm sure people are like, sending me messages. Like I just got an email before like this call and it was like, hey, so that account's called Sobriety Activist.
Mhm.
Hey, Sobriety Activist, like we think you'd be great to partner with. And like I literally just respond, I haven't been active on that Instagram page for 2 years. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
And
It's
like,
funny, I did the exact same thing. Like,
yeah,
I just got tired of Instagram and the results I was getting from it, it just felt like pulling teeth to even get those
yeah,
results. And the growth was so limited. I was just so frustrated with it. I was tired of like having to take videos all the time. My
right.
phone memory was constantly maxed out. You have to post every day because your stories
Yeah.
expire and the feed posts are only 24 hours and you have to make a visual for it. You can't just write something. And even if you do and you
Yep.
do it in your notes and it's not the right shape and you still have to crop it, it was so
Oh,
irritating. There's so many barriers to like
yes.
actually doing it, just doing it, let alone being successful. And with LinkedIn, like I have a thought, I open LinkedIn, I write it out, I schedule
Yep.
it, it's gone. Or
Done.
maybe I add a gift to it, which is just
Right.
fun for me. I
I
like
love
finding
gifts.
gifts. It's so fun.
Love gifts. If I could just
Yes.
only communicate in gifts, like we have teams at work and I'll just be like, I'll just send a GIF, like, like instead of
Yeah.
writing okay, like I'll search for like an okay GIF. Like it's just so much more fun.
Yeah. And that's like, it's so much, I find content creation on LinkedIn so much easier. But when
Yeah.
I started on LinkedIn in like 2017 and content creation wasn't a thing.
Right.
You posted your portfolio, you posted that you got a new
Exactly.
job. Like LinkedIn was for networking. It wasn't
Yep.
for posting. And so it's
Right.
been really interesting to see the rise of content marketing on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
what it can do for you, what it means, how it feels, and being able to make that leap from Instagram. Like when I was done with Instagram, I was fucking done with
Yeah.
Instagram.
Same.
I only go on there like once a month. I post like a picture of me roller skating and I'm like, this
Still
is for my
alive.
family. I don't know. Yeah. And I'm
Yeah, I have a
kind of
personal
like,
one. I have a personal one that I post my stories or like I share funny things, but
yeah.
I don't just like let random people, like it's private, like because I
Yeah.
have my son on there and I'm pretty like mindful of that.
Yeah.
So which is why I never really post him on LinkedIn either.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know
Mm-hmm.
who's looking at that.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
but yeah, LinkedIn is
So
a lot easier because of the writing. The writing.
yeah.
Yeah.
What have you found with LinkedIn? Like, what are your results? How does it feel to you? How do you use it? Do you have like a strategy? What are you doing around there?
Strategy. Yeah. I used to say like I have a no strategy. Like I used to be like that was like my I'm really cool. Like that was just my way of like saying like I'm lazy or like I can't wrap my head around making 5 posts ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was the way I could say that. But um it's just hard for me to sit down and write multiple posts. If I do, like I'll do it one time and then I maybe won't do it for months. I think so. I'm trying to get better at like setting aside a time to do that. But I
Mm-hmm.
do find that like, when Friday at 10 a.m. rolls around that I picked, like I don't wanna. Like,
Yeah. I do it when I feel like it.
yeah. And so
Yeah.
like when I do feel like it, I'm trying to really just like dig in and just go for as long as I can because like I don't know when that time's gonna come again.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm usually just posting like day of. I do have one day that I post regularly. Like the same thing. So like my newsletter comes out on Tuesdays. So on Mondays, I always post about what's in the newsletter. And like,
Mm-hmm.
if you want more, like I'm going to write, get the newsletter tomorrow. So that's like been a really big driver of my newsletter growth,
That's
actually.
amazing. I
Yeah.
really need to
So
practice that. I never share about my newsletter or my podcast. I don't
you
know
got to
how
do it
it's
like the
still
day
growing.
before. The
Yeah.
day before.
I'm gonna
Someone
write that
told
down.
me that. Someone told me that. It might have been like it was somebody else's idea. I mean, it's not like this amazing thing. Like it's just
I've
posted
heard
the day
it
before, but
before. It's just
it
not a routine I
honestly,
do.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so I've always been like, when I write my newsletter, I always have a Monday post that I write out. But yeah, especially if you're giving something really like actionable that people want,
Mm-hmm.
in your newsletter or in your podcast, like, oh, this is like a big shocker, whatever thing from the
Mm-hmm.
podcast episode, like put that the day before and then people will, well, I mean, the newsletter, like they can sign up. The podcast, I guess you could share that day of, that might make sense, but so
Yeah, totally. It's
yeah,
like I know I should do it. So here's what I do with LinkedIn.
yeah,
When I feel excited about something or when I comment on something and it's meaningful to somebody or when someone comments on my stuff asking a question, like
yep,
when I feel inspired, I just immediately write the post and then I schedule it. And I schedule them for every single weekday. So then when
okay,
I want to post about my newsletter or my podcast, I'm like, well, I already have a
you
post out
already have
today
one,
because I
yeah.
already scheduled it. And I will always already have a post because I post scheduled into May right now. I don't even know when I'm
I
posting half the
cannot
time.
even like
It's
I've
just
never
like,
scheduled, first of all. I've never scheduled a post because I'm just like too controlling. Like I need to like, I don't know what time. Will I be on LinkedIn at that time that day? I don't
oh,
know.
it
You
doesn't
know what I
matter.
mean?
It doesn't
See,
matter.
for me, it
I
does.
just,
I don't know. Like I just feel like I have to like, be there for a little bit first, then post, and then be there for a little bit after. Like, I don't know.
oh, no. So when
Yeah.
I go on, I just go on like for 30 minutes
Random.
in the
Yeah.
morning or an hour maybe. I
Yep.
do 15 minutes of sending follow-ups if I need clients. If I
Yep.
don't, then I do 15 minutes of connecting with new people at companies I want to work at. And
Yep.
then I move on to like replying to my notifications and messages. And then I'll like just scroll and
Right.
interact. And the post writing is literally like, I just got off a coaching call with one of my clients and they gave me a brilliant idea, or I'm responding to comments from my notifications and I get a good comment, I make it into a post. So it's like, it's just spontaneous, and I'll write like 5 or 10 posts a day, not like on purpose, but literally it's just like, I replied to a comment, I copy and paste my reply to that comment and the comment, make it a post. And it just sort of snowballs on its own. I am the no strategy girly, like truly, it's real.
Well, it's just having so many ideas. Like you have tons of ideas. I have tons of ideas. I just don't write them into posts in the moment. And I think that's what I need to do better, because I could write down one sentence, a one-liner, but like next Tuesday, I'm not gonna know what I was thinking. You know what I mean? So it does help me when it's in the moment.
Yeah, same. So I'll show you if you want. I have in my notes app, which by the way is like a disaster. It's like the one unorganized part of my life, and I'm truly not even embarrassed by it anymore. Yeah. But like, I have this one note that I used to keep at the top from when I was doing Instagram. It was content ideas. There are over 1,000 ideas in there.
Oh my gosh.
Looking at it makes me feel horrible, like overwhelmed.
Do you even like, can you go back and you're like, oh yeah, I know what I'm talking about here? Or some are just like,
absolutely. Every single one I could. Wow. But here's the thing. Those ideas, not a single one will ever see the light of day.
Right.
Never.
Right.
Because that is where ideas go to die.
Yes. Everybody has one of those though. Do you know what I mean? Like everybody has
like my Pinterest.
Like, yeah. Right. This is cool. Like when I need to redecorate, right? Like then you just never look again. Yeah.
20 years from now, when I have a house that I own. Yeah, sure. So I'm just like, remove the barrier to entry. Where is the resistance coming from? Let's throw it away. But then I don't have new people listening to my podcast, and my newsletter subscribers are coming from just referrals because I'm not sharing about it. And I need to like share. I put so much work into these things. I'm just like not even sharing.
Yeah, you got to share. And it doesn't even have to be like super like pitchy and salesy, you know, you just talk about it. And then at the end, you just say,
here it is if you want to listen.
Podcast, right? Yeah,
totally. I know. And I could literally just copy for the newsletter. At the top, I put like, these are the 3 things we're talking about. And I only include 3 things per newsletter. I could literally just copy and paste that into LinkedIn and something would happen. Literally. It's better than nothing.
Be like, this is what's in the newsletter tomorrow, ... Like, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
If you want in, the link is in the comment. Like literally, that's all you'd have to write.
So easy. What am I doing?
You get the day before. Somebody said day after too, but like, I guess you could.
Yeah. Oh, well, on Substack, you can read them the day after. So, but then people won't, they'll subscribe if they think they can only get it in their email.
Oh, right.
You know? Yeah. It's so interesting.
Hard out here.
So what other results are you getting from LinkedIn? You've got your newsletter.
Sure. I've gotten some referrals for writing jobs. There's one place that I write for now that the person just DM'd me on LinkedIn, was like, hey, are you interested? You know, I did remove kind of like, you know, my LinkedIn page profile is really about the newsletter, because that was like my one, like I was like, okay, I'm gonna do the newsletter, but now I'm like looking for some more clients. So I'm like, okay, should I change it to like, you know, so I need to have like a mix of like writer / get this.
I'll send you. Know? Okay, so I made a video. Maybe I'll tag it in the description of this podcast. I normally don't share these things outside of Pop Club. It's like for my membership group. But when people ask me questions that are like outside of our normal office hours call times that I can't explain well in writing, I make videos for them. So I made this loom about how you can position your LinkedIn and how you can change it, how it's a living document, like treat it that way. So right now, mine looks like I am only a freelance writing coach in the description and the headline, but obviously you can scroll down to my experience and see everybody that I've written for. Right. And then when I'm looking for writing clients, I switch it back to writing. So it'll say like freelance copywriter or whatever. Yeah. And I'll change the about to like testimonials for my writing clients and things like that.
I need to do that.
Yeah, you can like switch it for what you're looking for, and it's so easy. So I keep a Google Doc that has like all the headlines I would ever want to use and 2 separate abouts. I'll send it to you and I'll send you my templates. Yeah, it's so much easier when you can just like copy and paste it.
Yeah, I do have the copy and paste things for like to put like what I put in the comments, like when I want people to subscribe to the newsletter or whatever, I just like copy and paste that. So that's easy. But I'm totally like a copy paste person. But that's the only post that I really have like set. I just joined this new like community. I'm not a big community person because I don't tend to like utilize it enough to
Mhm.
pay for something. But this one that I joined has like some like weekly live calls, and so that was like a big one for me, and it fit with my schedule. So I'm trying it out, and so that's hopefully going to make me a little bit more intentional about what I do. But it just depends because it's like today I woke up and I'm like, it's raining. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like
Yes.
this thing could like make me like not be motivated.
Yep. Yep. And it's such a like, this is why I'm not like, I used to try to force myself to have strategies and force myself to be
Yeah,
intentional. I
it's
made all
hard.
these content calendars I never followed. And
Yep.
I've just learned to like just remove the barriers and just do it your way. And
Yeah.
that's what will give you success and consistency. Because if you don't, then like it's just gonna be there and you're gonna shame yourself for it. And you
Right.
cannot shame yourself
Right.
into being
No.
better at
Right.
whatever, air quotes, better.
Yeah. And I also feel like when I do get those like moments of like, oh, I'm not doing like enough, or like, look at so and so, like, look at all they're doing. But here's the thing, like, people will message me like, oh my gosh, look at all you're doing. And I'm like, no, I don't. I'm not. Like, you know
You
what I mean? Like,
are,
you know
yeah.
what I mean? Like, we all do that to
Yeah.
ourselves. Like, no, I'm not that great, actually. No. Like,
Imposter syndrome,
I know. But like,
comparison.
I will completely stop listening to any like self-development, business, writing podcasts.
Yeah.
Get rid of all those YouTube videos. Like, I will not watch any of those. I will start like I'll only read like a novel, right? Or like
Hmm.
I'll only watch reality television. I do that
Yeah.
anyways. I do that anyways, but you know, like I sometimes it's too much. It's the info overload of like, and even on LinkedIn, it's hard because
Hmm.
everybody is, you know, selling something or
Touting something.
yeah, it just gets performative and we're all doing it. But
Yeah.
like, so, you know, I don't know. So sometimes I
Clout.
just need to take a day off. I'm trying to see if like taking at least a weekend or 2 days off, you know,
Hmm.
just to come back and because I don't want to be living on LinkedIn either,
Mm-mm.
right?
Yeah.
But
I don't go on LinkedIn on the weekends at all.
yeah,
Yeah. I will
yeah, I
say
can't,
two
so
things
yeah.
about that. Number one, do you notice that? So for me, I get really comparison-y, imposter syndrome when I'm PMSing. And then when I'm not PMSing, I am like sky high confidence. I'm
I'm
great.
actually, you know, have you looked into that a lot? Because like I have seen people like talk about the different times of the
Hmm.
month and like how this is when you should do this kind of work. And this is, and I haven't,
Yeah.
I know that exists. I just haven't dug into it personally, but that's something like it's on
Yeah.
the list.
I
It's on
hated,
the
so it was
list.
like on my list for so long, and I had one of those period trackers on my phone, but I
Oh,
never
sure.
used it, and it was annoying to me.
Yeah.
Now I have it on my fridge because I go on my fridge to get my cream for my coffee every morning,
Yep.
and I just
Yep.
move a little magnet to the next day, and it will tell
Yeah.
you where you're at in your cycle and what symptoms you might be seeing. I made
Oh,
this sheet, and I got my friend to laminate it for me at her work.
love
And
that. I love
it's
that.
so helpful because I can actually see, and I record on it like when I got which day I got my
Right.
period on, and it has like your hormone cycle. I basically like, I don't know, I just custom it. I'll send it to you if you want.
Yeah, that
It's
would be cool. If
so
there was something that
helpful.
like just did it for me, like yeah, like an app that then I like
Yeah.
put the date in and then it was like, "Oh, you should actually lay on the couch today." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." You know, or
Yeah.
like you should actually, you know, you're going to be really creative this week. Like that
Yeah.
kind of like thing. Like that would be I bet there's an app out there.
Stardust,
We should
yeah,
probably
Stardust is great. They have
okay.
an app and it will send you push notifications of like, this is how you might be feeling today. But I
Yeah.
noticed that I just would ignore it.
Yeah.
Whereas like when
I
it's
would do
on the
that too.
fridge, it's
Sure.
tactile, it's in front of you, and it's like,
Yep.
oh, I no wonder I was so angry at everybody in
Yeah.
Target yesterday. You know?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I
and it's
totally.
helpful too because my boyfriend can see it as well
He's like,
because
"Oh,
it's on the
shoot,
fridge.
you got to steer clear today."
He's like, I'm gonna let you have your alone time tonight.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, yeah. I
Great.
don't know. I like it. I'll send it to you after if you
Yeah, you
want.
should.
But then the other thing I was gonna say is like, yeah, definitely take time off of LinkedIn.
Yep.
But there's something about like working with yourself on that. So for me, the way that I combat the imposter syndrome and the comparison is
Mhm.
by reaching out to other people that
Yes.
make me mad. So
Oh,
I saw your, like, it doesn't, I don't know why it makes me mad. Maybe I should say it makes me jealous
okay.
rage. I don't know. I get jealous of people.
Tell me
And
more.
most of them are like, my competitors. But
Oh, sure.
I started to realize like, oh, my competitors are like me. They only have so much capacity for specific types of clients.
Right.
And we're all doing kind of similar things, but in a different way or through different products. And we all have different brains. Like our selling
Yes.
points as freelance writing coaches or as freelance writers is like how we write, how we coach, our personalities. We're all different. So why am I so mad? Like that doesn't make
Yeah.
any sense. So
I totally get it.
this started back when I was still on Instagram, and my main competitor was Colleen Welsh of the Freelance Writers
Oh,
Guide.
yeah.
She's
Yep.
not coaching anymore.
Oh, okay.
And we became friends through Instagram. I reached out to her and I was like, we're kind of doing similar things. Do you want to come on my podcast? I'll come on yours. Do you want to
Yeah.
be friends? And I actually went to visit her when I was driving through Cleveland because
Oh,
I was
that's
just
cool.
like,
Yeah.
I'm in the area.
I
And we
love that.
became actual friends. And then when she decided to stop coaching, we had like a whole long conversation about it. And she was like, do you want to buy my business? And I was like,
Oh,
what? And so for a few days, I like thought about it and thought about it and thought about it. And I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Why would I buy her business? We are so different. We're doing
right.
completely different things. Our
So different.
personalities are different. It wouldn't make sense for me to buy that audience because I didn't make
Not
it.
your
They
audience.
weren't attracted
Right.
because of me. They were attracted because
Right.
of her.
Exactly.
So she sold to somebody else. Who cares? But at the end of the day, I was just like, it was just such an epiphany for me.
Yeah. Yep.
And that was the real driver of continuing to do that. So now, like, I've had Jenny Gritters on my podcast. I love Jenny.
Yeah.
Our brains are so similar. I've guest spoken in her community. She's going to guest speak in mine. She's been on my podcast. And it's been so cool because she's like, oh yeah, I don't have any one-on-one capacity left. Do you? And she's like, sent me clients. And that's incredible. Chef's kiss. I had Austin Church on. Again, we have similar ways of like setting rates and talking about rates. And that was just so cool to be able to share that information with my audience. And like if someone goes and buys his book, like amazing. I hope they do.
Right.
And it just made it like the jealousy and the fear and the comparison just starts to go away when these people become your friends.
Right.
So I always tell people, like, if you're jealous of somebody, reach out to them. Like when I first started writing, I wanted to write in the outdoor industry, and it was really challenging to break into. Yeah. And I reached out to one of the most successful writers in the outdoor industry, Heather Below Rockford. Okay. And she happened to be teaching a pitching course like a month from then. So I got on it. It was super cheap. It was like $150. Yep. And I immediately got on it. And she was like personally reviewing our pitches for us. And it was so cool to get to like learn from her. Yeah. And I realized in one of the Q&As we did with her, she was like, actually, outdoor writing only makes up like 20 or 30% of my income. Most of the time, it's actually writing for tech outlets or review companies. Yeah. That's making the money. And I was
you
like,
wouldn't have even known that.
No. Right. And that's when I started pursuing other niches. And now outdoors has become like a little bit of my income. And I've slowly broken in, but I never would have learned that. And I would still be jealous of Heather if I hadn't just done. And also noticing she is 20 years older than me. She has more than 15 years more experience than me.
So you can't even compare. You're not even like at the same level, like at all. And yeah, I have a few, I mean, so I only have like the brain capacity to talk to so many people, and like actually become like regular friends with them just because
of course
it's a lot. And that's just I think that's an age thing. Maybe, I don't know. But,
I think it's true
ADHD,
of most people.
It's you know, I can't give good me to everyone.
Totally.
Right? So anyways, I have like a certain, number of writers that I just, Sharon Wu, I don't know if you're familiar with her. Her and I chat pretty often. And just the other day we were talking about, trying to find new clients and how it's hard. Everybody's trying to find the same clients, it feels like, or, with all these newsletters that we're on that have gigs or opportunities or pitch where you should pitch. And so, it is nice to hear other people's problems are the same problems though that you have, and so
shared experience.
Yeah. And so it does look like, especially on social media, like everybody's super successful and everybody's, whatever. But people wouldn't know unless you talk about it. And I think I know that people appreciate hearing about it too. Like, like on this podcast or even
Mhm.
just, the posts and stuff, the posts where I say like, I'm going to lose my client this month or something like
Yeah.
that. Like people love that. And it's not even like me trying to get people to love it. It's
It's
just,
just
this
the
is real
truth.
life.
Yeah.
So, and people, it's refreshing. It's not 4 ways to grow your LinkedIn or how to
Mhm.
optimize your profile, which I do also,
Mhm.
but it is good to just put some real life in there,
Yeah, yeah. I try to only write posts that I would personally want to read,
Sure.
or that's
Yeah.
like information that I'm like, people really need to know this."
Yeah.
Like the FSLA thing, the whole Department of Labor
Sure.
classification
Yep.
of freelancers thing,
Yep.
like there was so much fear mongering about that on
Yeah.
LinkedIn for a while, and people were like, you need to call your representatives and like cite this as like something they need to back and blah blah blah. And I was like, first of all, this is like complete misinformation. If you call your representative and say this, they're going to be like, what are you talking about? And second of all, you don't need to be afraid of this if you're not doing anything. If you're not a full-time employee that's misclassified, you're not
Yeah.
there's you don't need to worry about that. Like this is protection. This is
Yeah.
not
Right.
gonna mess with your career in any way unless you are actively like doing something wrong.
Sure.
And it was just wild to see that going around LinkedIn. Actually, that came up. Someone messaged me about it and was like, "Do you know anything about this? Because I have a public policy background."
Okay.
And I was like in bed when I got the message on Slack, and I was like, I probably shouldn't read this right now. But then I started reading it. I started reading the
Yeah.
post, and then I started reading about the policy, and I read every line of that policy, and I was just like, what is this guy talking about? And I got like so angry. It was first thing in the morning. And the next day, my partner was like, can we just like make an agreement, like no more LinkedIn in bed? Because that was really disturbing. I was like, yeah, sorry.
It was a one-time thing. It was really important.
I was like, I swear I won't do it
Trying to
again.
save the freelancers. Okay.
They need help.
Yes, they need me.
It was just such a it's such a wild ride.
It really,
So
yeah.
I would love to hear a little bit more about your newsletter. Like,
Sure.
why'd you start it? What's it about? Who's it for? Do you have like an end goal with it? Like,
Yeah. So when I was doing alcohol-free content on Instagram, I actually started an alcohol-free newsletter. So I have done a newsletter before. I did that one on Substack.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, on Substack. That was fun and grew really fast. People just liked hearing me talk about not drinking. It sounds really, if you're not someone that's like in the sober space or haven't, made a big change like that, that's really actually really hard in this society that's obsessed with alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really like grasp how big of a deal it is to quit drinking and how hard it is for some people. So people really like cling on to anyone that's like talking about that and open about it.
Yeah.
I'm telling their story, right?
Yeah.
So that grew pretty fast. I mean, not a lot. Like it grew like, I did it for 4 months, maybe got like 400 subscribers or something like that. But, and then when I quit Instagram, I think I quit the newsletter a little bit before that. I just was a lot to keep up with,
Mhm.
And then when I moved to LinkedIn, I started another newsletter. I can't even remember why. I think I just like
You like
writing.
having something to
I
do.
like writing newsletters, I guess.
Yeah.
And that was it was called The Relatable Creator. And so people always just tell me like I'm very relatable in what I talk about, what I write. And so that just fit. And I was talking about like creator topics, just like a very wide range of
Yeah.
things. And I love Jay Klaus and his like creator science brand. And so like that's kind of sort of the idea. I mean, I didn't copy him, but like, like the creator space, right? So then at some point I had some sort of epiphany and really enjoy writing about freelance topics.
Mhm.
And I'm sort of new, about 2 years I've only been doing it. So I feel like I have a different perspective than maybe somebody who's been doing it for 15, 20 years.
For
Like,
sure. Yeah.
and things change real quick. So even the
Yeah.
stuff that I talk about, this year things might be totally different, might be a different cool way to find clients or to put yourself out there next year.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, yeah, I just changed to freelancers and then it grew like way quicker than it did because it was a little bit more specific and it's not super
Mm-hmm.
specific, right? Like freelancers could be a lot of things like,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I just I like the idea of like newsletter businesses. I don't know that it's a long game though for people
Yeah.
sometimes, you know? So we'll see. I'm sure I'll just like quit it one random day or something like I tend to do. But no, I've actually it's been about a year now that well, including the relatable creator one, which is it's the
Mhm,
same one. I just kind of like changed the name, right?
mhm.
Um about a year I've been doing it now. And every week I haven't missed a week. I have, you know, I've gotten some ads put in there. People have paid for ads. My goal was to make some products, which again, I have to set aside the time to do that. Otherwise it
Mhm.
will not happen, right? Like with our personal projects, it's so hard to, for me personally, to make the time for that because
Yeah.
I'm busy doing client work, right? Like it's almost like the work that brings in the money you can like vision. You can envision that
Yes.
money coming in because it's a transaction, right? So
There's
like
pressure.
yeah, and you have a deadline. Like I
Yeah.
don't have a deadline. I've been done this product I've been creating for however long, you know.
My favorite
Um
thing is to
yeah.
productively procrastinate my client work with my personal projects.
Oh,
And then
really?
it's
I need to do that.
honestly, sometimes it works out,
Yeah.
and other times you're either so stressed out that you're like, I fucked up, or you have to extend your deadline because you fucked up. But
Right.
sometimes it works out really well and you get a bunch of stuff done.
Right. I need to get stuff. I did. There was one week where I knew that I really didn't have any deadlines. And I was like, okay, the plan is to make X, you know, parts of the product. And one day was brainstorming and I did that and I outlined it. And I think I spent, you know, a couple of days on it. And now it's like in a place where I still need to work on it. It's not even close. I do have a wait list going. So like, that's good.
Nice. There you go. Something
Um,
started.
yeah, so like I've talked about it a little bit in the newsletter. I'm not really actively promoting it or anything. Probably just as like a thing where like if I decide to not do it anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll do it
Yeah.
someday.
Yeah.
I should make a deadline. But yeah, so the newsletter is for that. It would be nice to like get some money from it. Like I think
Totally.
that
Yeah,
would
it's a
be
big effort.
but yeah, that's a game itself. Like you got to get out there and find people to put ads in it. So
Mhm.
it's not sustainable to just get paid from ads over and
Yeah.
over
You would have to
either.
do the same thing as you do with getting freelance
Yeah,
clients.
exactly. If you
Yeah.
keep going out there and getting them. So I think the best way probably to monetize it would be with products and little things like that, templates
Mhm.
and stuff like that. So I really do need to prioritize that. So we'll see. We'll see.
Nice.
We'll see what happens. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
love to
just
hear
keep
it.
growing it, I guess, is my goal. I'm not like typically a person who sets like these really big goals.
Mhm.
Um, probably because I don't want to like not reach them and then like be mad. So
Yeah, you're
I'll
just
set like
doing it to do it.
I'll do like, you know, with like a day, even like a day, like today I have like a list of things like I want for sure to get done. Just a
Mhm.
couple. And then anything else is extra. So I don't have
Mhm.
like this huge goal to get all this stuff done because like I won't get it done and then I'll be mad at myself. So I try
Yeah.
to like just do the minimum that I need to do, you know.
Mhm.
Um, but that's typically how I work with most things. So
Nice. That
yeah.
makes sense. It's good to know yourself.
Yeah. Right.
So, you were diagnosed with ADHD about a year ago, and
Yeah.
it's been how tell me about that. First of all, what it was like to get diagnosed, but
Sure.
also like what the past year has been like for you and how that's changed your life.
So um, you know, I've always like not always, but like in recent years since I started writing and having more to keep track of, um, I've thought like, oh, like do I have ADHD or like I don't know, I just would say like I have ADHD like tendencies, you know?
Mm.
And I was in therapy, just like monthly therapy for no reason other than because everyone should probably just be in regular therapy. Um, like you need to have therapy like ready for like when you actually need therapy. You know
Yeah,
what
and
I
you need to
mean? Like
have
if
like a
you
good relationship.
right, or like
Yeah.
something solid to like, okay, but I actually like need to talk about this big stressor in my life now. No,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So I was in therapy for like about a year. And one day she said to me, have you ever thought about that you might have ADHD? And I was like, you know, I have. She's like, because we've spent the last year talking about your time management and finding new ways to manage my time and organize and my planners that I kept buying and never using. And all that kind of stuff. And I was like, I have thought about that. And so I made an appointment. Within a week, I was in my primary physician's office, and with my notes app with all the reasons why I think I have ADHD listed out on a little. I just sat there and like pulled it out and like read it out. So I'm like, I interrupt. My brain is, I'm just like, I keep going, right?
Yeah.
And at the end, he's like, yeah, I can very confidently say that you have adult ADHD. And I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, you know what? You're doing what you need to do. You're going to therapy. You're trying to manage your time. He's like, but honestly, he said, it's actually shocking to me that you're like functioning with like, I don't know what the words exactly are.
Yeah,
but
totally.
it's like surprising that like you're actually like getting stuff done and like functioning. It's like the amount of mental work that you're doing to get through all the stuff that you have to keep track of is like mind blowing to me, he said. I was like, really? Oh, just like, I just do it. But like, no wonder I'm tired. It's 7. You know what I mean? Like,
totally.
So I got on medication right away because I was already doing therapy. I was already doing the other things that he would suggest. And honestly, game changer. Game changer. I said to my friend the other day, who's a mental health therapist, I said, she has also ADHD. I said, okay, so like the normal person that like exercises, eats healthy, gets enough sleep, does all those good things, like, has good relationships. The normal person that does not have ADHD, do they just like see the world clearly? She's like, yeah, they do. I was like, what? Really? Really? They do? Because like after I got on medication, it felt like there was, I never felt like I was in a fog or anything like that, but I just feel like some days I'm just like, wow, everything's very crisp,
Yeah.
And he just said it was a very low dose when I started. He just said it's going to help with task switching. And it did. And like, we've upped it a little bit since, nothing crazy, but, yeah, it's wild though, the difference of like,
that's major.
Yeah. And now, I mean, it's only been a year, so this is brand new to me. But like all the Instagram reels about making fun of ADHD, like people making fun of themselves, like, just like the funny things. I'm like, oh my God, I do that. I do. And I think I just am very hypersensitive to it now, where like everything I do, I'm like, oh my God, that's ADHD. Like,
you can see it everywhere now.
Like, in conversation last night, even I said I had this whole story and I interject all these like not really important parts of the story, but I'll like kind of have a monologue with myself in the middle of the story, trying to figure out part of the story. And then I'll keep telling the story. And then last night he's like, did it really matter if they messaged you on Snapchat or Teams or like an email? Like, why did you have to like try to figure that out in the middle of the story? I'm like, okay, but like that didn't bother me. Like while I was telling the story, like that's just where my brain went. He's like, I don't care. He's like, I just think it's funny. I'm like, yeah, it is funny. He's like, I didn't even recognize that I did that. And so there's a lot of things that, it's been interesting. I'm still really trying to figure out how my brain works best, though. Like I'm still trying to figure out
how to work with yourself.
Yeah, and like what days are better for what, or like I'm trying. I try to do only meetings on this day, or like, I'm going to try this thing called like, this is not that like groundbreaking. Like I'm going to just like, it's like content day. Like I'm only going to write content, LinkedIn, newsletter. And then maybe any extra time, maybe go through emails or something like that. But because if I don't do those, if I don't set that time aside, then it doesn't happen. Like we talked about, right? Or like a really deep work day where it's like blogs, it's client blogs, and it's nothing else. It's the phone is in the room. LinkedIn is not happening, and taking breaks is one that I'm not great at. I got an under the desk treadmill. So that's good.
Nice.
Taking breaks is the one I'm probably not the best at.
So you get focused. Yeah, it's been very enlightening moving in with my partner and him pointing out all of these things that I'm like, what do you mean? You go to work from 8 to 4 and you're like genuinely working the whole time? How? How? And like you're not exhausted? It happens to me like around 7. I'm just like, I'm dead. Or like he'll be like, you have ping pong brain today. But he says it like every day. And I was like, maybe I should like actually talk to somebody about this. Yeah, I'm afraid of medication, but the more people I talk to that have been diagnosed that are taking medication, I'm like, maybe I should try
Like the mean soup that I've heard, and I work in psychology. I have friends that are like PhDs, like like
Mhm.
I'm not trying to brag, like I'm really
Yeah,
not. I'm just
no, I
trying to
get what you
say
mean.
like they are people that know what they're talking about. That's what I
You're
mean, right?
informed.
Informed, yeah, and the main two things are like appetite, like it can change your appetite, make you eat less,
Yep.
and then sleep are the main
Yeah.
two, side effects of ADHD medication. Some people don't like, sometimes it takes a little bit to like go from one to the other just to find
To
something
figure
that
one
works.
out.
I got
Yeah.
lucky really early and that I found something that works. Um, and sometimes it's a long process for people.
Yeah.
Some
I just think
doctors
it's so
just kind of,
funny just like how many things I've been diagnosed with psychologically over my lifetime. And I was like tested for autism and ADHD when I was a kid, but those
okay.
tests were designed for boys. So of
Yep.
course it didn't.
That's the work that I do, by the way. I
Oh,
I don't
interesting.
test kids, but I test adults.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that I do at my day job. So
Interesting. Yeah.
yeah.
So you're very
So
informed.
yeah, right. Like almost too much. Like I know too much. I can pick stuff up like, oh yeah, that kid over
And then you
there.
intellectualize in therapy, and your therapist's like,
Yes.
all right, here's all your patterns, because that's the only thing you hire me for at this
Oh
point.
my gosh. Oh my gosh. It's so true. But they
Yeah.
do say that a lot of girls, and I'm not a doctor, right? But like
Hmm.
I have heard that a lot of girls, especially, get diagnosed with like anxiety and it ends up being like, looks like anxiety because you're, it's not this like I can't sit still in class kind
Hmm.
of thing, right? It's like this whole umbrella of things. Cause like I don't
Yeah.
have this like hyper, people think that's what ADHD
I
is,
don't
but it's
have
so
energy. I'm
not.
not hyperactive
Yeah.
unless I'm like obsessed with
Draining.
something, and then I'll go off.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But like I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression. And the
Mm-hmm.
more I think about like what my anxiety is about or when depression shows up when I'm just not interested in anything. But I
Yeah.
can be depressed about everything except like roller skating. And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, well then I'm not depressed. I'm just not interested. Or
Ooh,
like I'll be anxious, but it's about specifically like one obsessive thing. And that will be the
yeah.
thing for like 3 months. Like paying a certain bill or like finding pants that actually fit me or like
Yeah.
something super silly and trivial sometimes, or sometimes it's something
Mhm.
big, but then it will go away and then it comes back. And
Yeah.
it's, I don't know, I just
Isn't
read
it
it. I feel
interesting?
like I relate to the videos on TikTok, but then I'm like, oh, it's such a cliche that everyone's like self-diagnosing themselves with ADHD. And I don't want to. And I just started going to therapy again
Yeah.
after like a year and a half long break.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't been to my PCP in like 4 years. And I found
Yeah.
out like recently that during the time that she was listed as my PCP on my insurance, she's actually like not even been working anymore.
Oh,
So I'm like, oh, maybe I should like get a PCP. So I'm like getting
yeah.
a PCP, and it's just all these things that you have to
Right.
go through to get the
Yeah.
diagnosis, get the medication. So I'm in process, but I love hearing people's stories about it because it's like it is really relatable to me, and I'm just kind of like, what's happening? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Right. And
So
it's a weird imposter syndrome-y thing too, because like I'm like, okay, but like, do I have ADHD? Like, because that's how that person talks about their ADHD, and they've been dealing with it since they were a child. So like,
yeah,
do I have real ADHD? You know what I mean? So like, it's like this
yeah.
weird,
And I'm living with a neurotypical person who is like Hondo P neurotypical. Like
yeah,
he's never been diagnosed with anything in
yeah,
his life. He goes to therapy just to talk about like
sure,
whatever his like family system issues are,
sure,
not
sure.
like depression and anxiety. And
Yeah.
in comparison, like I'm fucked compared to that guy. The amount of time I spend thinking and dealing with things and just like
Oh,
when I ask him what he's thinking about, it's either like nothing or like
yes.
what somebody thought of me or what his work is. That's it. And you ask me what I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, so there's
You
like
don't even
15
want to
things
know.
happening at
You don't even
once.
want to
There's
know.
like a medley of like Taylor Swift and Bruno Mars. I don't even like Bruno Mars, but I don't know how it got stuck in my head. And then there's also like this new album release that's coming out. And then there's also like work, and you know what I mean? Like I could
Yes.
talk forever. Have you seen those videos on TikTok? There are these two guys, they're
I don't
twin
have TikTok.
brothers.
I don't have
Okay.
TikTok, but maybe Instagram.
They might be on
Funny.
Instagram. Oh my God, I should send you this video. It's these
Yeah.
guys that are like, what's going on in my brain at 4 a.m.? And then it's these two brothers playing a mashup of 15 different songs that happen to have the same BPMs and chords. And
Oh my God.
they're in the video, they're sitting still, but their outfits swap.
Oh
every like
my
2
God.
seconds
Like your
with the
brain.
beat. And I'm just like, yes,
That's
that's the
funny.
thing.
Yeah. That definitely could be ADHD. I'm not a
Yeah.
doctor. I'm not a medical
Uh,
provider.
well,
But,
thanks for being the armchair expert
yeah,
here.
right, exactly. No, I mean, yeah, it's definitely worth if anyone is in, considering any like, oh, I might have this or that, learning more about it, asking questions, right? Um,
Talk to your
yeah, I mean,
doctor.
I guess a diagnosis for something like that would, the only reason you probably would need that is if you were going to be on medication, I guess.
Yeah. It is an answer. It is like, oh, this is
It
a
is a
label and it
validation.
makes sense. Yes.
Yeah.
And none of the like diagnoses I've gotten have ever been like, yes, that's me. That makes sense. That
Right.
explains everything. It's just like,
Right.
okay,
I
so I
guess
have
to
some
fit in that
symptoms. It's
box. Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have so many like really specific systems that I've developed with my therapist, and that's great.
Sure.
And I'm really high functioning, but like, I would love to have the energy to like go out in the evening with my friends because
Yeah.
I'm fucking 29 years old and I feel like I should be able
Yeah.
to do that and I can't.
Yeah.
Or like, I feel like I shouldn't be, maybe I'm like working against myself by not getting help at this point. You know what I mean?
It's worth, I mean, and here's the other thing. If you were to go, let's say you started on medication, you don't have to do that forever. Like you could do it for a
Right.
month,
Just
like, I
try
don't
it.
really like it, and then be done, and then we're done with it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like it doesn't have to be like this like thing that you do, it's not like you're getting like an arm amputated. Like, and it's like a big decision. I mean, it's a big decision. I get that. But like I'm so much just like, dude, if I can get some help, like, and I was functioning just fine, right? Like I was fine. My dog's whining. Squirrel. My dog. So I was fine. And my doctor even said, he said, a lot of doctors would be in here talking to you right now and they'd be like, you're fine. You're a mom. You're busy. Like you're whatever. Like it seems like you're doing fine. You're not missing deadlines. You're not whatever, but he's like, I think you would get a little boost, a little help with this. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is a game changer. And it changes your mood sometimes. Like I am in such a better mood some days because of it, I don't necessarily always need naps in the afternoon. Like I feel like I do if I don't take it. Yeah, it's just been like, I feel like I know too much now, like about myself, which is sometimes a bad thing. Cause like, you just like pick up on those things, with yourself. And
it's really interesting. I love hearing
I'm
everybody's
always down to
experiences.
talk about it though. So like, I love talking about it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
We'll have to, I want to do a poll and see how many freelancers have been diagnosed with ADHD that are like in my community.
Some kind of poll, was it last week or the week before?
Oh.
Was it about ADHD? There was an ADHD. I don't know if last week's was. I think it was. And it was like, are you diagnosed with ADHD? Are you not? Do you think you have it? And like a lot of people, I'll find it and I'll send it to you. That
would be so interesting.
There was like a lot. There's like, I want to say it was like over 300 people responded to it.
Wow.
And a lot of people are like, I feel like I kind of do, because you know what, the creative thing too is a lot of people who have ADHD are super creative because their mind's got all these ideas going all the time and they're curious. And, but that's because we also jump around from one thing to the next because we get bored, right, with these certain things, which is why I'm like, oh, I might quit my newsletter one day. Like, I'm just gonna wake up and like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah, totally. Oh, I very much relate. Oh man. Well, it was really, really good talking to you today, Blair.
Yeah.
Can you tell people where they can find you on the internet?
So I'm on LinkedIn, obviously, as we made that very clear. Just search my name. And then I also have a website, blairsharp.com. And so if you want to check out my newsletter, you can go on there. There's a button, I guess, on my header, it's like / blairsharp.com / if you want to check that out. But I'm mostly on LinkedIn. That's really where you're going to find me and most of the time.
Perfect. Yeah. Yay. It was so nice to finally actually talk to you and not just see you around on LinkedIn.
Right. Yeah, exactly. See our photos.
Perfect.